Welcome back to Beautiful Work, Beautiful Life. We're here in the month of April 2024, and our focus this month is on empathic sensitivity and all the things that come up around that oftentimes, if we're not aware of our empathic nature or sensitivities, that we don't know how to do a lot of self-care around that. We don't know how to navigate the world really well. And there really are some special, I think, strategies, techniques, ideas, things to think about. And so we're spending the month really focusing in on that for anybody out there who's sensitive or feels like they're empathic, feels like they don't really have a space and a place to get the support you want. We're hoping to expand that here on the podcast this month. And we started our month off with the podcast called The Art of Saying No. So that was last week. If you missed that, go back and tune into that. And I feel like, Laurel, this is an extension of that conversation, but we're getting into the nitty gritty around handling that process of saying no, because no is conflict.
No is conflict, isn't it?
Yes.
How much internal conflict do we go through before we say no?
Well, I'm going to tell you, as a sensitive, a ton. A lot, too much, unfortunately. It's gotten better over time with some of these strategies and ideas and ways to think about it that we're going to talk about today. And our topic is empath, sensitivity, and conflict. So hopefully, we're going to help you handle when you come up against conflict and you have all the feelings and you're overwhelmed or you don't know what to do, how to handle it, how to begin, sorting through that and doing better with that. That's the goal today. Yeah.
Such an important topic.
Absolutely. Laurel, is there any place you want to dive in?
Well, I just want to say, working with clients, having friends, even family who are sensitive,
Mhm.
and I want to say men or women,
Absolutely.
but I know it comes up a lot with the women I coach.
Mhm.
Um, somehow there's already conflict for being sensitive,
Yes.
right? Like how many of us were told we're too sensitive over our lifetimes,
Yeah. I was. I know I was. It was really,
right?
and it was very hurtful. I wanted to hide my sensitivity.
Yes. And you end up just having conflict, I think, with the world just receiving that impression from other people. And
Mhm.
then you begin to try to contain your sensitivity, right? And you try not to feel so much.
Yeah.
And that just, that's conflict in the making.
I know, I know. So let's begin with let's see if we can kind of almost make a list of strategies, simple
Sure.
strategies and techniques to begin to, or practices, right? To begin to change wherever you are and your relationship with conflict and all that difficulty. So I would say the first one right off the bat is not labeling your sensitivity or your empathic nature as a problem. Stop doing that.
Absolutely.
Right. Yes. If
Right.
other people
How,
are doing it, don't get in on the on the notion that that's a truth because it isn't necessarily a truth at all.
right. I mean, how can you start to see it as a gift, right?
Yes.
That that you have the ability to feel and process emotions.
Yes. And energy, oftentimes
Yes,
energy.
absolutely.
Sometimes it's that kind of you're walking into a space and you're starting to take in all this energetic information, emotional information, and because we don't have a lot of language around that in our culture, that's really embedded in our culture right now, we're at a loss for what to do with that and how to explain that, how to talk about that well. So we hope that the show will help you do that today, right?
Yeah.
So the very
Yeah.
beginning is for yourself, how do you begin to turn around your inner dialogue? We talked about inner dialogue a couple of weeks ago. We had Adele on the show. Actually, it was in February. Adele Michal was on the show. We talked about focusing your inner dialogue. So there were some tips I know in there about that. But this idea of coming back to anytime you think, oh, I'm sensitive, or I know I have a lot of clients that say, I don't want to be emotional. I hate my emotions. Do you hear that,
Mm.
Laura?
I don't hear that very much, but I do hear that it's extremely uncomfortable to
Right.
feel emotion.
Yes, yes.
right?
So that would be another piece of this where you don't judge your emotions, you don't label them as something bad or wrong or a problem, but instead you start to navigate the territory of being more fluid with your emotional state, just naming it for what it is, right? So that that begins to have some power in the situation. Yeah.
Yeah, and it just reminds me of, that the theory that everything is neutral, that it is I who puts a positive or negative spin on it,
Yep.
right? And if I get to choose, the neutrality of I feel emotion, I am an emotional being, I am sensitive,
Yeah.
right? I'm sensitive to energy and emotion
Mm.
around me and
Yeah.
in me. Like
Yeah.
all of those things we can teach ourselves to speak in a very neutral, right, without judgment of it. And I
Yeah.
think that's really important. And then
Absolutely.
the other thing that was coming up for me here is the question of, what if your sensitivity and your emotion was a messenger, right? Bringing it right into the curiosity. Like, what is it here to tell me? What can I learn from it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Rather than being afraid of it.
Absolutely. And what can it how can it serve me and whatever else is going on in this situation? Because I think that's the other thing when you're sensitive, when you're empathic, oftentimes your inclination is to want to serve, help, support, rescue, whatever, whatever the case may be in any situation. And so what you want to do is figure out how to first take care of yourself in any situation, and then once you've gotten to that point, and some of the things we're talking about right now are are the process of getting to this is how you take care of yourself in a situation. We're going to talk about this more, boundaries. That we'll get into that more deeply in another week or so on the podcast. So come back for that one. But right now, this idea of first and foremost, like knowing how to stay centered and inside yourself, and then kind of allow the emotions and the energy to move about and just begin to identify them for what they are. Right. And then the next level of that would be kind of tuning into what's going on inside you and what are you getting from outside you. And that's a whole nother layer of
Oh, yes.
knowing how to read, yourself and how to take care of yourself and all of that. Yeah.
I mean, I would love to dive into that more. I mean, because so many people that I know and some of my clients who are highly sensitive individuals,
Mhm.
they haven't yet learned how to decipher whether it's external
Yeah.
energy, emotion that they're having a reaction to,
Yeah.
or they're tapping into, or if it's internal. And teaching them how to do that has made a world of difference, right?
Yes.
I mean, even to think about once that you can identify that, how do you care for yourself so that you can still have some empathy, compassion, concern for the external
Yeah.
emotion you're feeling, but you can protect yourself from it being um, con consuming, I guess, right?
Yes. Yes. And
Yeah,
affecting and necessarily like I want to say affecting your energy in a destructive or a negative way, like taking you down a.
unhelpful.
Yeah, which
Yes,
is which is oftentimes the hardest part for us,
yes,
because when we enter that situation, right, the immediate conflict oftentimes is I might be in a good or a centered or feeling okay place, and then I walk into a room and I start picking up all kinds of other maybe negative emotion or heavy emotion or conflicted emotion or whatever it might be, right? And then now I'm conflicted. Now immediately I'm conflicted because I don't know what to do with it. Right. So I
yes.
get in a state of conflict myself in that.
And even you don't even have to walk into the room sometimes, but you might have, a loved one, a
Yeah.
friend or a family member
Yeah.
who is experiencing something emotional,
Yeah.
and you carry that for them without even realizing that it is not your emotion to carry.
Yeah. Yeah. So I feel like one of the best strategies for being able to start to decipher what's yours and what's outside you, first and foremost, is really just allowing yourself to have enough space and time on your own and in your own space to process your own emotional experiences, right? So you know what it feels like when you're processing your anger, your confusion, your sadness, your grief, whatever it is, you know what it feels like to be processing that energy. And there's a certain vibration to it when it's yours.
Yes, yes. And then the other, I think, tool that is helpful is identifying the thought that is
Hmm.
causing the emotion,
Hmm.
right?
Or comes with
And
it.
so
Yeah. Yep.
maybe that, maybe that instance of, you know, when you're witnessing someone else going through an emotional experience or knowing, you don't even have to be witness to it, you know that they're going through it.
Yeah.
Um, identifying your thoughts about the situation,
Hmm.
right? When you start to have thoughts like, I feel bad for them that,
Yeah.
or I wish this wasn't happening to them, right? It's a really good clue about, is that your emotion that you're feeling, that you're sensitive to? Or is your empathy so high for others, right?
Yeah.
That you take on what you imagine they're experiencing.
Yes. So that's a great lead into to the next piece of this, which I feel like oftentimes is can be really hard for others. But I think that once you practice it a little bit and you get it, it becomes easier over time. And that is knowing when you're projecting what you think the other person is going through
Absolutely.
versus just picking up some energy and experiencing it, right? And that's where it's almost like sometimes in the projection, you have your own agenda in the back of your mind, right? Of what you think it is, or what you think it's supposed to be, or what you want it to be, or what you want to help with, or, whatever your agenda is. And so to be able to discern whether you have any agenda back there, right? And then letting it go and just allowing yourself to feel whatever you're feeling and then just sometimes state it right there with the other person, right? Wow, I'm feeling this weird feeling of confusion right now. Boom, that's it, right? And if
Yeah.
they're feeling it too, they can say, oh my gosh, I am too, right? And then you might see, oh, maybe I am picking up theirs and it's not really mine. But you can't, we have to be really careful not to project when we're feeling things right away that it is somebody else's stuff. And then we also add an agenda to it or reason around it, so to speak.
Yeah.
Story.
And so much, that reminds me just of our nervous system, right? So we're aware of something happening outside of us, and we either use our own past experience to imagine what that person is going through, what
Yeah.
they're experiencing, but we don't know,
Right.
right? And it is our past experience and our nervous system that is alerted based on our past experience that that person is, you know, at risk or in harm's way, or, feeling something terrible, right? Again, it's our perception based on what we have lived through.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
of course, as sensitive people, we want to eliminate any discomfort or harm from others' way, right? That's what we want to protect them.
Yes.
Um, so I think, yeah, projecting our own agenda is really interesting.
Yeah, so this whole idea of wanting to protect others, take care of them, rescue them, this is a big part of this in terms of strategy and working with this topic for yourself. If you know you're empathic, if you know you're sensitive, and you tend to have that feeling a lot with people, right? Is coming up with doing your own soul searching, so to speak, around your own idea about what real help or support looks like. and understanding that. I know for me, being in women's circles and learning the group model that we learned and supporting women and in group in a way where we were just holding a loving container for them to share what their experience was, right? Was such a different way of thinking, okay, now I have to fix it. Now I have to rescue them. That's not really helping them. That is actually, at some level, the philosophy is it's taking away their power to figure it out themselves. It's taking away their power or the belief that they can do it themselves. So there's a lot behind this idea of when you're showing up as a sensitive or an empath, do you really believe that you have to rescue people, and what for? Like
Yeah.
really doing some deep soul searching around that idea. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting because identifying what real support looks like, right? And how can we learn to hold that space without having to solve the problem?
Yeah.
Um, I often think about, you know, that some of my biggest growth has happened with adversity, right? I mean, I hate to say that, but
Yeah.
isn't that what life brings us? It's one lesson after another. So often I think if I am jumping in and solving this problem so that my loved one doesn't experience discomfort or difficulty or adversity, am I robbing them of the growth and lessons that they are meant to experience in this lifetime?
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
it's humbling. And it does make me stand back and say, who am I to take that on?
Yeah. And to take that learning away from them, because ultimately to go through it and to come to terms with your own problem, to
Mhm.
find your own solution is so empowering. And ultimately you embed that lesson inside you so that hopefully you don't repeat it again. Or if you come close to repeating, you go, wait a minute, I know about this.
That's
I,
right.
I figured
And
this out before.
that's right. I know what this is. Um, Same lesson, different earth suit, right?
Yeah.
But it also, is a great reminder that loving support can be just listening
Yeah.
and witnessing and holding space for without the fixing.
Yes.
you
Yes.
know and what a beautiful way to honor their experience, their life lessons, but support them in a way that really does have them feeling seen and heard.
Yeah, I know. I'll share a little bit about my own personal story here with growing up in a family where I had siblings that had alcohol problems and really had, some serious problems around that. And for me, in my youth, it was so hard to watch the escalation of that, get into my 20s and feel responsible, feel like I wanted to help, feel I wanted to take care, feel I want to solve my family's dysfunction, all the stuff, right? And, for me, that juncture of coming to that place at 30 where I said, no, wait a minute, like I'm consumed by some of this. It's, really at some level killing me, emotionally, internally. And I'm not changing anything. The reality was no matter how much I said something or wanted to help somebody, I wasn't changing anything. It was all staying the same. And so to start to get some skills and some understanding about what it's like to be a codependent, to be sensitive, to be empathic, to feel all those things, and yet to see that I can't rescue them. Like this is their life. These are their choices. This is their soul's journey to have whatever experience they're having in this lifetime. It took a while to get to that point where I could back away enough to learn how to be sad that this was the reality of our family, to be sad that I had all these feelings for myself, to also acknowledge they weren't feeling the sad feelings because they were numb most of the time. I didn't know what they were feeling. I didn't really know what they were going through, right? But I
Yeah.
could see that they were struggling. But unless they talked about it, I didn't know, right? To just step back and make that separation, between they're over there having some experience, I'm over here having some experience. I can take care of myself but I can't do it for them.
Yeah.
And that was huge. That was really huge. And it was kind of a daily practice, um, to let go, to do the let it be what it is, to stop thinking that in my mind, thinking I could control it or fix it, to just stop thinking that and start thinking other thoughts. Oh, I hope they figure this out one day. Oh, I hope they don't, end up in jail. Oh, I hope X, like I could hope for things. I could want the best for them, but I couldn't do it. It's
Yeah.
just to really like make that separation and feel the relief at some level of not taking on that emotional burden of wanting to fix it, because that's an emotional burden that we carry.
It is. And you know, talking about that situation, I've had similar situations in my life where the emotions that are coming fast, right?
Yeah.
Fast. It's a whole host of emotions. And
Yeah.
so I do think that it's, you know, I don't want to, overwhelming doesn't really describe it, but, we're so busy in trying to manage all of the emotions and the situation. And so often, I know I did this for a long time, the my energy was going into if I couldn't fix it, I was wishing it wasn't happening, right?
Mm.
Without your example of wanting for them, right? Wanting the best for them. I mean, I think we maybe get to that point, but
Mm.
there's this kind of you have to make peace with all of the emotion you're feeling.
Yeah.
There's a little bit, you use the word sadness, but it's really a mourning of, it's loss because
Absolutely.
you cannot fix it. You can't change it. And you really have to come to terms with it is what it is. I hate that saying, by the way.
I know, but it's
You
so
know,
true.
it is so true. And what do you want for them? Almost in the prayer way, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Wanting for them,
Hmm.
wanting for yourself, right?
Hmm.
And help, having support and help living with that, I'll say burden.
Yeah.
It feels terrible when you can't fix something.
Yeah. Yeah. And yet, if you come to the place, like I know for me, right? I go, okay, I'm here on my soul's journey to have whatever experience I'm having right now. And then I'm going to honor that every other single person that I encounter is also doing that. And who am I to say what's right or what's wrong for them on their soul's journey, for their lessons, for their evolution as a human, as a spirit, as a soul. I'm not the one that gets to say what's right or wrong for that. Yeah.
And it is so going right back to, we each have our own agenda, right?
Yeah.
In this situation, it's your agenda or your judgment or, that ends up completely intertwined with what you want for them.
Yeah.
And that's hard as humans. That is hard. I mean,
Yeah.
if we could live free of judgment, imagine if we allowed everyone to have their own experience.
I know. I know. Yeah. Well, think about all the conflict that drops away, right?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Immediately from that experience when we say there is no right or wrong.
yeah,
There is maybe your own ethical beliefs and feelings about what is best or what is healthy or what is whatever. But in terms of black, white, right or wrong, it's all gray, right?
yes.
Yeah.
And that just is like full circle back to the very first thing of, when you've been told that you're too sensitive,
Yeah.
it's not right or wrong to be sensitive. It just, you're sensitive.
Yeah. So if you are sensitive, if you know you're very sensitive, if you know you have an empathic nature, I think one of the things that you want to think about on a bigger scale for yourself, so you don't walk through the world conflicted all the time, is, how are you gonna use that gift? I think of it as a gift now because for me, I use it in service both to myself, cultivating my own good life and supporting others in their experience of, having a good life. how do you want to use yours? I don't know. Do you want to serve people like this as a coach, as a mental health counselor? Do you want to be a mediator? Do you want to be a lawyer who just is really empathic and really helps their clients at multi-level ways? I don't know. I mean, everybody has their own gifts. So it's really about thinking about, what is it that you want? How is it that you want to show up in the world? And yet put these sensitivities into practice to good use and showing the world that, wow, this is a good thing to be empathic, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So I want to I feel like, one of the things that we're seeing in the world today, on the rise is suicide, is male violence here in America, um, and young people really struggling with self-image and the ability to feel good about themselves. Social media is contributing a lot to that. We see that, we know that. And if you're empathic and you're sensitive, your inner conflict is oftentimes going to be high when you're engaging in the world in an emotional way. So, right from the beginning, just acknowledging that you have self care that's different than what may be for other people is really important. So I want to say this is one of the strategies, right? And we're going to come back and go into this in more depth in a couple of weeks on the boundaries and self-care. But you have to first just acknowledge, I need to take care of myself differently than,
Absolutely.
this person over here who's not bothered at all by what they're seeing.
Yes.
Or they can watch the news every day and take it all in and think about it and talk about it. Where for me, it's like it's churning in my belly and my heart is aching. And, I can only take so much of that, right? So
Yes.
just saying, I have to do it differently.
And it's such a great reminder. I mean, I have had a client, I worked with her, for the better part of a year, young woman who highly sensitive, and it affected her, especially in social settings. She found herself wanting less and less to be with groups of people and even groups of friends.
Mm,
But it was really this um, taking on too much of the emotion, not just the room collectively, but the individuals she loved, right?
yeah.
And so the self-care practices that we really put together for her were things that she could do before going to a social event, right?
Mhm.
After she came home. And it was really no one else in her peer group she felt was doing this,
Yep.
but it was
And
just what
nobody
you're
even had to
saying.
know, did they?
They
That she was
didn't
doing,
know,
right?
no,
Yeah.
right? But what she found was being able to do this, she did feel better in the situation. She felt more ease going into the situation because she really felt like she had this practice to maybe protect her from feeling too much when she was with, more than one person at a time, right?
Yeah, that's great. Laurel, can you
Yeah.
give just like one example of what she did as a strategy, just so people can see that there's like some of them are just really simple and
Yeah.
yet they really have good results. Yeah.
Well, this really came from, something I had developed at one time, um, seeing my skin, as a protector, if you will, as an
Mhm.
envelope that I didn't have to absorb everything around me.
Mhm.
And so it was a self-care practice of maybe putting lotion on before going into this, right? As a reminder
Yeah.
of the separation between you and the emotion of others.
Mhm.
Um, the candle meditation is always a good one, right? Just creating this space where you are, even for 1 minute, gazing into the flame of a candle and envisioning that it is, um, uh, kind of protecting you, building
Mhm.
an envelope around you,
Yeah.
right? So a lot of it is the visual,
Mhm.
tapping if you're in a situation, tapping your own skin,
Yeah.
feeling your skin, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and showering is always a good one too, so
Mhm.
that afterwards, after you're with a lot of people, the showering to be releasing what you may have felt you absorbed from that situation, right?
Yeah.
Washing it away. So
Yeah.
just some simple things that um, are somewhat intentional and mindful um, of releasing and protecting, I guess is,
Yeah, yeah, that's great. That's great. So let's kind of wrap up with a little bit more around conflict and the
yeah.
idea of like more easily and readily saying no, saying I can't do that. Because another thing, when we talk about this idea of self-care and being able to go into a situation where you feel like if you're overwhelmed or if you're overloaded, how do you extract yourself? How do you recognize, yeah, I'd like to do that, but it really wouldn't be good for me. I think that would be uncomfortable for me, that kind of situation, whatever. Like learning how to really know how to say not only no, but even just um, yeah, that's really hard for me. I think that's too uncomfortable. I don't want to do that, and I love you. It's not about you. It has nothing to do with you, right? Because I think it's this idea of, we started this when we talked about this podcast of calling it "I love you," but it's as an empath, as a sensitive, I care about you, I love you, but I can't do that because that feels like it violates my code of ethics, or I feel like I'll put myself in a situation where I'll really overwhelm myself or stress myself too much, right? Um, and so how do we learn how to do this well?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the communication of it is so important because when I think about, I love you, but the everyone that we are in relationship with loves us too, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Say that I am the more sensitive one in in my marriage. I might be able to say, I feel a lot and I'm trying not to carry the, the emotion or I'm trying not to carry all the feelings all the time.
Yeah.
So I need to do this or this, right?
Yeah.
I do whenever we're trying to change maybe a habitual relationship pattern or a behavior,
Hmm.
um, letting people know that I am being intentional about this because I want to change this about me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I find the response is so much more understanding.
Yeah. Yeah. I think to be able to get to the point where you can say, I've realized I'm anxious all the time because I'm worried about, how I'm going to feel if I get in a situation where I can't say no, or I'm really uncomfortable because I'm getting too much energetic information in, right? To be able to like explain it in a way that makes sense to somebody else, first to make sense to you, and then
Yeah.
develop the language where it makes sense to some, even if they don't get it completely because it's not their
Yes.
experience, to just say, I know you might not get it because it might not be how you, feel when you're in social situations, but for me, it's too much and it causes me so much internal stress and anxiety. And I don't want to give up my energy that way because, every time
Right.
we go through stress and that kind of overwhelm, what we're doing is depleting our energy tremendously. Yeah.
Yes. And when our energy is depleted, the, the emotion that we allow in is even heavier.
Yeah.
So,
More
you
intense,
know,
right?
and
Yeah.
when you say to someone, you may not understand this, one of the things I have said before, and I continue to say, you might not get it because this isn't how I've been in the past,
Right.
right?
Yes.
Letting them know,
Yeah.
you understand they might not get it because I'm acting differently now,
I know. And I
right?
didn't get it before.
Right?
Yeah.
So, that piece of it, and then the other question I often bring into a conversation when I am changing my behavior and in a relationship is, who else do you have to help you with this,
Yes, yes. So let's put
right?
that as our biggest last recommendation is you have got to find people that can support you and get this. You
Yeah.
really do have to. The more I work with clients, the longer I work with clients, and the ones that I see that aren't gathering up, they're people that get them, that the longer the struggle goes on,
Yes.
the more quickly you find a support system that gets you and that allows that and supports you and doesn't question, what's going on with you, just like allows you to be who you are and start to acknowledge what your needs are and
Yes.
supports you and encourage you in you in that, the better you feel.
Yes. And that question I also take to when someone is asking of me and I can no longer give that, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
asking them, who else do you have to support you in this,
Yes.
right? It
Yes.
lets people know that I can't support you in that way anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, and encouraging them to find a support system that is not just you, the highly sensitive individual who wants to
Mhm.
fix everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Right? But
know it.
it's true. We need a support system that is wide and deep, right?
Yes, yes, absolutely. And for
Yeah.
some people, I think that's the other thing too. For some people that are of a more extroverted nature, sometimes they process things by talking about them. And sometimes they talk about them over and over and over again until they get to that place where they've figured it out, they know what they're going to do. And for a sensitive person, sometimes it's too much. They can't listen to it over and over and over again because their energy starts to feel like weighed down, like I'm supposed to be doing something with this. So until you get to the point where you can maybe listen to it 10 times and it doesn't affect you, you might get to that point where you can do that. But at the beginning, you have to acknowledge, I can't be that one anymore for you that
Yeah.
listens to that over and over again. That's hard.
It's hard.
It can be really hard in a relationship to say, I can't, I'm sorry. It's just, I start to feel so hopeless and helpless myself, Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's tough, I think, and it's a process. I just want to, reiterate that this is a process that over time you will get better, but you've got to start instituting some of these strategies that we shared in the show today, some of these ideas and thoughts about how to think about this all differently, how to accept this for yourself, right? First and foremost, self acceptance. Stop judging yourself for it, right?
Yes.
And that's huge. And if you do that, it starts to turn it around in a big way. So,
Yes.
yeah. Anything else, Laurel, as we wrap
No, that
up?
was a lot. There's
It's a
so much
lot.
here.
There's a lot here, and that's why we're going to do a couple more shows that hit on these topics,
Yeah.
and especially the boundaries and self care, where we're kind of we'll net out some real specifics around the boundary work, even more so than we did in this show. So
Yeah. That's great.
it's not easy. Conflict has never been easy for me, and people think, "Oh, you handle it all so well now," and I go, "Well, I've worked really hard to get there." But it doesn't mean that it still feels easy inside. And it doesn't mean that I'm
No,
still not heartbroken sometimes and my stomach isn't in knots at other times and whatever, right? I still have feelings and all of that. It's just that I know better how to step in and go, I really want to show up like this because I know this is what's helpful here. And if I'm just a jelly melly mess with no, ability to put any boundaries in place or help, then I'm not going to really be who I really want to be, which is ultimately we want to be supportive.
that's right.
That's the
That's
empath
right.
sensitive thing. And we want to help, right? So it's like, yeah,
Right.
learn how to help well. Yeah.
And, I'm not that I mean, we may never be comfortable with conflict, but just knowing that, conflict is part of our life. And when we handle it well, I mean, it does it get easier? It might get easier because
Yeah.
when you eliminate, when you identify a conflict and work through it and eliminate it, that perhaps it's not always a conflict in the future. It's
Yeah.
a past behavior change, right?
Yeah.
Like there's
Yeah. It's
something in
big.
there.
It's
Yeah.
big. I would say that, there are things that like being able to say, no, I don't want to do something with somebody, like is easier now. That was really hard forever for me. But now I can do it pretty much with like, no, that's not really for me. Even
I'm doing it better too. And
yeah,
and it's interesting because tying into the sensitive person, one of the hardest things about saying no is the response and reaction of the
Mhm.
other, right? And
Yeah.
so the more that you do it, they now, it's not a new behavior,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, because when we change, our relationships change.
Yeah.
But being able to live a life that we choose and we're not compromising, I'm going to say, our own needs is so beautiful.
It's so beautiful. And I feel like, we're in a time, and this is just my thought, my perception of the world as it is right now, but I feel like we're in a time where we literally want the sensitive, empathic people to grow and get strong because there's places for us in the world now that there weren't necessarily before, corporate life is changing, the government's changing in front of our very eyes as we speak this podcast, like it's all changing. And so there's going to be more and more places for us. So the stronger we get, the more we can step into
Absolutely.
leadership around this too. Yeah.
Absolutely.
We're back here rooting for all you sensitives and empaths. We want you out there in the world engaging, making the world more beautiful because we know you can.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And not hiding it,
Yeah,
right?
not hiding it. Don't hide
In that,
anymore. I know.
no, it's like
Mhm.
so many people are sensitive, and there
Yeah,
is nothing wrong with feeling your feelings.
absolutely. No matter what your parents might have told you. Speaking from experience.
We could talk all day about what our parents told us, Laurel.
That's right. All right, Laurel, off we go
Okay.
for now. Thanks for the great conversation.
As always, it's such a
Yeah.
pleasure to be with
Thank
you
you for
and our
being with
listeners.
us. I know. Thank you for being with us out there. We love you. All right.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.